No, it's just a warm wool shirt
Nice.
because I'm cold.
When aren't you cold?
Yeah, pretty much never.
It's probably good for where you guys live, not being cold. I'm freezing down here.
Oh no, I'm always cold. That's
Oh, you're
that's
always
even in
cold.
the middle of
Okay.
summer, I'm cold.
See, that
I'm
makes sense.
not. See, as similar as Jen and I are, that's the one main difference between us, is that Jen is always cold and I am not.
I know. People would consider me a bad Canadian. They're like, how can you be cold? It's like 23, well, you know, for you guys, it's like 90 degrees out. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter.
Bad Canadian. That's hilarious. Let's see. We got Andy here.
Andy.
He's hiding.
Yeah, he's like, I did this last time. You don't need to see me. He can't.
Oh, is Brad not at, or as Sean not added you as a leader of the? Oh no, you are listed.
He is. He's already as a host, but I had to turn on presenter mode for him. I just assumed he was on another meeting, and it's like I'm gonna be on both. It's fine.
No, I might be more silent in the background, assisting how I can. But yeah, no, I just couldn't turn on camera or video for a second. It's like, oh, you need to have a net presenter mode enabled. I was like, but I'm a host. How can I not do that?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I saw that you were a host. I'm like, okay, this is good. I can turn presenter mode off for myself, and I guess too.
Don't do that. You might break something.
Everyone turns off presenter mode.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna give it. We're still gonna give it a few more minutes. We've only got a couple other people here. We had 33 people sign up, so hopefully.
There's Kat.
Yeah.
Hi, Kat.
Oh, yeah. Hello.
Hi, Kat.
Hello.
Well, you've now officially surpassed the number that we came to our user group.
Yes, speaking of scary stories of technology issues. Through a little connection there.
I was thinking this morning, maybe I should make another LinkedIn post. Like, don't forget, show up. But
I probably should have done that myself, and then I forgot.
I started working. Yeah.
See, the problem I find with LinkedIn is it shows posts to people like days after the post.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, like, I have people liking posts that I made about events that happened 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's not helpful anymore. Thanks, but that's one of the reasons I ended up not doing it. I'm like, okay, everyone will see this in a week, but oh well. That's what we'll make once it's posted on YouTube, we'll make another post about it. And,
sounds good.
Get people to watch it, but it's 1:35. We've got 7 people here, 4 of which are on camera. So we'll just go ahead and get started. Let me start. Oh, it started recording again. Awesome. I didn't
Probably
do that.
did that when Andy joined.
Probably, yeah. All right. Well, this is the November 2025 Adobe Analytics Deep Dives here with Jen and Mandy. They're going to be diving into marketing channel, which is, I know, a headache for a lot of people. So here in just a few minutes, I'll hand it over to them. But first, we're just going to do a couple housekeeping slides. So Jen, can you go to the next slide, please? Most people here, well, a lot of people are going to be watching a recording, so they can't do a whole lot of self-promotion anyway. But don't contact people that you might see on here without their consent, or just maybe a LinkedIn message, I guess, just to, let's not spam people. And then anything you see that looks like it might be accidentally shared when it was supposed to be confidential, just don't share it without consent, because there could be some company information that leaks through in a question, or in some of the data or something. Probably not that, but yeah, just don't share anything without consent, because you never know what shouldn't be actually shared. And then next slide, please. And then obviously we've mentioned this before, this is going to be recorded. If anybody who is on the call doesn't want to be recorded, then just watch the recording later, and that way your name's not on anything. But for anybody who might want to revisit any of this or wanted to take a note, we'll put the YouTube, it'll be up on the YouTube channel later, and that way it's available for everybody. And then I think there's one more.
There is.
Oh, join us. There's the deep dive user group. So it's a newer group. It started late last year. If you click join, then you get notifications whenever there are new events. And right now we're trying to do one of these at least every other month, about every other month. And then hopefully as it becomes more common, we'll do it maybe once a month, and get a little bit more content, a few more topics, and lots of stuff, lots of good stuff for everybody to absorb and hopefully utilize. I think with that, yep. So Andy, I'm sorry you're not on here yet. He's new to the group. Me and Andy are going to be putting all these on. And then the presenters today are Jen, like I said, are Jen and Mandy, going into marketing channel. So if you guys want to take it from there, I'll go off the camera and shut up.
All right. Mandy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Mandy George. I'm a senior e-commerce analyst at Staples Canada. I'm a 4-time member of the Adobe Analytics Champions group, and I'm also a user group leader for a different chapter, the Toronto user group. And I'm also a community advisor on the Experience League forums. So you can feel free to reach out to me on Experience League or LinkedIn if you have questions about marketing channels or analytics in general. Always happy to chat.
All right. And I'm Jen. I'm also an Adobe champion. This is my 6th year as a champion. I'm also a community advisor on Experience League. Also, you can reach out to me there. And I am a user group leader of the Gnome East user group. So I guess let's dive right in. Marketing channels. Nice and simple. So here's our agenda. I'm not going to read it through. I'm sure you can all read. But for reference, you can probably figure out where in the video we are when you're looking at the recording if you want to skip ahead to certain sections. All right. So starting off, what are marketing channels? In simple terms, marketing channels are a complex system of classifying how people are coming to your site over a specified reporting period. So this is generally used to better group your traffic for revenue or conversions based on multiple factors, from type of information being passed, such as campaign codes from your external sources, to what referrer is sending traffic to your site, and so on. There's a default window of 30 days, which can be changed. And because of this, and because fundamentally your marketing channels want to give more precedence to actual drivers, channels like direct or internal are usually set to not override other channels. Otherwise, this would essentially negate the 30-day window, since every visit would then just be stuck into its own bucket. And while we generally focus on the last channel to drive a conversion, cross-channel attribution can also be a valuable tool to understand how and what campaigns lead up to a conversion. And an important note for everyone is that marketing channels are for external campaigns and referrers, how people came to your site. They shouldn't be looking at internal campaigns and promotions within your site, which should have their own unique tracking separate from this.
All right, so with marketing channels, so whenever you set up your report suite, the marketing channels don't just happen automatically. You do have to actually set them up for whatever report suite you're using. Now, Adobe does have an auto setup field, but you still have to go to the marketing channel page to get this auto setup to actually fire. So the first time you land on the marketing channel manager or processing rules page, you'll see this screen here, the auto setup. Now, this is optional. You don't have to go with Adobe's defaults, but you can. So these are sort of the most common marketing channels that people typically use, at least according to Adobe. And it has the option to set these up automatically for you. So you can select which boxes you want to have. So maybe you don't have any social networks or affiliates. If you don't have those, you can deselect them. But you can pick and choose which ones you want Adobe to set up for
I
you.
don't have an answer for
Now-
that.
Oh, somebody's. And this is why we don't trust the auto assistants, because they don't always have the answer.
Happens to me all the time with the Google Home and
Yeah.
everything.
And so for a few of these channels, like email, display, and affiliate, if you do select them, there is a second box that has a place where you can put in the corresponding query string parameter or affiliate domain. And this helps set up the rules to identify those channels. So if you want to use Adobe's default, you select the boxes that you want and then hit save, or you can hit skip auto setup and it will give you basically a blank slate and you can start from there.
All right. So as we already talked about, Adobe will set up default channels based on the auto setup rules, but you aren't limited to those. You can actually modify the names of the channels that Adobe set up for you. So in my example, I changed social networks to paid social networks, and then I manually added a new organic social channel. And you can continue to add as many channels as you need to support your business. Now, you will notice that there's a warning symbol next to the new channel, and this will appear next to every channel that doesn't have a corresponding rule. And once you add one or more rules to send traffic to that channel, that warning symbol will go away. An important part of the screen is also to note is the override last touch channel column. This is where you can define what channels will override the last channel set and which will not. Up front, this may seem confusing, but as you can see, and as I mentioned earlier, direct and internal are set by default to not override. And it's generally best to leave that behavior like this. If you're running a paid campaign, someone clicks on that campaign and gets properly set into your paid channel. However, they don't convert on that visit and then they leave. But they might come in the next day and complete that transaction. In the current setup, they will be associated to that paid channel. But if you were to change that override, the transaction would actually be associated to direct. And then your marketing people who are trying to run that paid campaign and see that return on investment might think that their efforts weren't working. So again, be very mindful of how these are set up so that you get the correct values for what you expect.
Yeah. So as Jen just showed, that's the marketing channel manager page, but that's not the only setup that you need to do for your marketing channels. Once you've defined what channels you're going to collect data for, you need to define the rules. So that way, when a hit comes in, Adobe compares the hit against all of these rules and determines which marketing channel it should be assigned to. For each of the different rules, again, Adobe does have some default options that you can use. If you click at the bottom where you have the Add New Marketing Channel button, it gives you a list of certain channels, and then it gives you a custom option. If you were to pick from that list, for example, paid search, it would give you exactly what you see here. This is the Adobe default setup for it. So it has matches paid search detection rules, which are set up by Adobe sort of in the back end. They've got all kinds of complex logic to determine if something is a paid search. And then it sets your channel and the channel's value based on these settings. And each of the different default channels that Adobe has different rules associated with it that you can use.
And setting up custom rules is pretty easy. There are two parts of the rule, the criteria to match the scenario, and then what the channel and the detail should be set to. For rules, you have two options. all criteria that needs to be met, or any other criteria needs to be met. And if you need something like X and Y or Z, you need to set up 2 separate rules. The channel and detail can be the same for both rules, or you can set a different detail directly to better match the criteria. For instance, if one rule is looking at a UTM value, then you can set your detail to that combined UTM tracking code. But if your other rule is looking at a specific referrer, there's no guarantee that you're going to have UTMs, so you should set the detail to something more appropriate, maybe like referring domain. Another important note here is don't overuse the is first hit of visit in your rules. Many times users will have multiple channels within the same visit. They come to your site from a Facebook post. Then they decide to try and find something specific, but instead of using your on-site search, they might go out to Google and search there. And then they might get a marketing email while they're on your site, and they follow that promotion link. And finally, they make their transaction. If you're only looking at that first hit of the visit, well, then you're not going to see any of those other channels, and your marketing team isn't going to see that their marketing email actually had any lift. First hit of visit is usually only paired with direct and internal because you don't want every page in your visit to be set, when that user doesn't have an explicit channel.
All right, so let's talk about some best practices. The first tip that I have is putting your paid channels before your organic ones. And after this page, Jen is going to talk a little bit more about the order of channels. But essentially, whatever rule a hit meets first, so it looks at all of the rules in order, whatever it lands on first is where it gets assigned. So if you want to make sure that your paid channels get the credit they deserve, make sure that they're listed above your organic channels in the list of rules.
And my first best practice, make the rules as complicated as needed, but not overly complicated. And by that, this kind of goes back to some of the stuff I touched on about having multiple rules, trying to define the variances to make sure that your scenarios are met. But if you try to make them too specific, it has to be this, that, you might actually, miss some scenarios, and that traffic is going to flow through all your rules, not match anything, and get stuck under none. So be mindful, have the complexities that you need, but also make sure that they're not too complex or have a catch-all.
And make sure you pay attention to which channels you enable the override last touch on. This is super important to make sure that you're not counting every hit as, a direct or an internal, because then you're going to lose all of the credit to the channels that actually drove the traffic to your site.
And next one for me, make sure you're matching your rules to your details. I've seen so many times where people just automatically go put in the tracking code. But if your rule isn't looking at a tracking code, there's nothing to put in. It's just going to be empty, and now you have no detail at all. So just make sure that when you're specifying your rules, the detail makes sense for what you're looking for and gives you the granularity you need to make those proper decisions.
Yeah. Also, don't hesitate to use a combination of the Adobe default with your own custom settings. Adobe has those defaults set up for a reason. A lot of people do tend to find them useful. So they've created these rules that are very broad, but they won't cover every situation. So if you have to modify them or add pieces to them, or maybe only use part of their default rule, it's okay to mix your own custom settings with the default ones.
Right. And on top of that, don't be afraid to change the Adobe defaults if they don't make sense for your business. As you noticed in an example earlier, I split my social into paid and organic. Same with my emails. I split those into different types of emails so that the newsletters can be reported on separately from our marketing emails, because they're 2 distinct groups.
Yeah. And also, don't limit yourself to just the channels that Adobe recommends. So in that list, you'll see the common ones like paid search and organic search and social, but you might have other channels that drive traffic to your site. Like you might have QR codes that are put up in store or in ads online, and people can come to your site through those QR codes. So any, other source of traffic that you want to identify, you can create as many different marketing channels as you need to accurately capture how people are getting to your site.
And again, pay attention, for when you need all versus any in your rules. There are going to be times where you're going to want a combination of this and this and this, because those as a group form a unique channel, whereas any, if even one of those matches, it's going to match the entire channel, and that might not be what you want. You might actually be putting the wrong information in. So again, just be careful about your logic.
And the last tip that I have is if you have multiple report suites for your organization, pay attention to what order you're listing things in the marketing channel manager, especially if you're using data feeds. When marketing channels are listed in the manager, the number beside them is essentially the number that they're assigned. And if you go to use the data feeds, when you look up the field, I believe it's VA Closer ID is what it's called. It's an interesting name. But it won't have the name of your marketing channel. It'll have the number that it's assigned in that marketing channel manager. So if you've got multiple different report suites and you're reporting on stuff in data feeds, keeping your marketing channels in the same order will make your reporting easier.
And the last one for me is set the expiry to what makes sense for your business. Adobe has a default 30-day retention period, but that might not make sense. You might want something that's shorter. Like us, we look at a 7-day retention period, or maybe you need something longer, 90 days. Adobe does give you the ability to change that. So again, set it for something that makes sense. Now, in order to better explain how marketing channels work, we should look at and compare another well-known rule set in Adobe, the processing rules. Processing rules in Adobe look at the incoming request, and then each rule is checked for a match. When the criteria is met, the rule will make the appropriate adjustments to the output and will continue processing the remaining rules looking for additional matches. This can mean that a value which is set in an earlier rule can be overwritten by a later rule. So the most important rules should actually be at the bottom. However, marketing rules are different. Once a match has been made, the marketing channel is set and the remaining rules will stop processing. This is why it's imperative to have your most important rules at the top. It's also a good idea to ensure that you have a catch-all bucket in place. If your rules are very specific, a match may not be made, and the request may make its way through all the rules without matching anything, ending up with none as your channel.
Yeah. So once you have all of your marketing channels defined and your rules set up, then as hits come in, it will start to assign them to the different channels. So this brings us to reporting on your marketing channels. There are two sort of main pieces of information that you can use when reporting on them. You have your actual marketing channel and then your marketing channel detail. So your marketing channel will be those, paid search, organic search, whatever else you've set up. This data is from a demo report suite, so it's a little bit different. So we've got other campaigns and text as our marketing channels for this one. Then you have your marketing channel detail. So this is set up in each of the rules, what value you want to give to the marketing channel detail. And this will provide you a little bit more specific information. So say, for example, your marketing channel is email. In your marketing channel detail, you'll probably want to set up the campaign ID associated with that particular email. And so when we report on this, it'll give us a list of all of the different marketing campaigns associated with that channel. And then you can put this against sort of any of your metrics that you want. So reporting on your visits, your revenue, your conversion rate. You can use any of your metrics against these marketing channels and the marketing channel details to find out which channels and which campaigns specifically drove the traffic to your site and which ones are responsible for your conversions and generating revenue. So just to kind of give a little bit of an overview, there are different dimensions and metrics that you can use for reporting. So we talked a bit about the marketing channel and the marketing channel detail, but there's also classifications. So just as you would use a classification on any other dimension in your report suite, you can use classifications on the marketing channel or the marketing channel detail. So say you have a number of different email campaigns that go out and you want to group them by, what month they're sent out, or if they're from a different team, like your site ops team or your product team or any other group on your site, you can use a classification to group these together to report on them holistically. And you can do the same thing for the actual marketing channels. You can classify them. You can do paid search versus organic or any other combinations that make sense for your website and report on your channels as a group instead of looking at each one individually.
And marketing channels can be paired with most metrics, but specifically the marketing channel instance is an important one because this is where your channel was explicitly set. This is good for understanding the count of direct channel entries. It can also be used to investigate why traffic might not be getting caught properly in your rules. You can also use it to create conversion rates if you want to see, conversions against entries from each type of channel. And of course, your conversion events are very important. This can be standard events like orders or revenue, or even custom events such as like newsletter signups or anything that's important to your business. Now, first versus last touch attribution can be a tricky subject. And while most marketing channels tend towards last touch, first touch can also be an important indicator. In first touch, within your reporting period, once a value is set, that value will remain, even if a new value is later passed. So in my example, on October 1st, a user came to the site from a newsletter and the channel was set to newsletter email. The user came back to the site on October 17th, this time with a marketing email. However, under the first touch model, because this user is still within that 30-day reporting period, the first touch channel remains newsletter. In the last touch model, using the same user, the channel on October 1st is set to newsletter. And even as that user returns to the site as direct, the channel will remain newsletter because direct isn't overriding that value. And then finally, on October 17th, when the new channel criteria is met, marketing email becomes the channel. The new last seen value will be set. And from that point forward, the channel is now marketing email. And then, of course, there's also cross attribution where you can look at everything in that 30-day period, which led to your conversion.
And another important piece of reporting on marketing channels is keeping in mind whether or not you're using segments. So we all build segments all the time to look at specific groups of customers coming to our site. But this is really important to keep in mind when you're using marketing channels in your segments is what data it will return. So here I've got a segment for marketing channel campaigns that we have our channel equals social campaigns at a visit level. Typically, you wouldn't build, a segment of just one criteria like this. I just did this for simplicity. But say you've got your marketing channel in your segment. If we break that segment down by the marketing channel dimension, if we look at visits, everything looks okay there. The total number of visits for our social campaign is the same as for the total segment. But when we look at our orders, this is where we start to see a bit of a difference. Our social campaign segment is saying that we've got 2,300 orders associated with social campaigns. But when we break this down by the channel, we can see that this is actually only 817 orders. So why does this happen? This is because in the segment, it's looking at your marketing channel at a visit level. So it's going to look at your entire visit and say, was this channel seen at all? If so, return the entire visit. So that last touch attribution, or first touch, depending on what you're using, that is tied to the marketing channel essentially gets lost in the segment. And it returns all the orders from any visit that had a social campaign at some point in the visit, regardless of if it was overwritten by another channel later in the visit. So when you're reporting on marketing channels, I guess another sort of best practice that I often use is try to avoid putting your channels inside of segments. Keep it as a dimension unless you absolutely have to put it in a segment. And in that case, just be aware of how the segment logic works and what that does to your conversion events like orders, revenue, or anything else that happens in your visit.
All right. And thank you for coming to us today. So now we're opening it up to Q&A. So if there's any questions, feel free to post them in the chat.
Yeah, I feel like we kind of went over some of these factors a little bit fast. So if there's anything that you want us to go back and explain in a bit more detail, we are happy to do that.
Yeah, especially since we had a little bit lower attendance today. And I think we'll end up getting more on recording, because we'll send out a link for the recording to everybody who signed up to come and couldn't make it. I expect we might get a couple of questions after the fact. So look for an experience league, I guess, for marketing channel questions that you might have stirred. Oh, here we go. What about market channel cost?
I just want to make sure, like when you talk about marketing channel cost, are you talking about, is there a cost associated to it in your Adobe SKU, or are you talking more about like the revenue share across your marketing channels? Hang on a sec. Okay, we're waiting. We are holding on.
Yeah. We need the Jeopardy music.
We do need the Jeopardy music.
I'm sorry, I'm unprepared.
Oh yeah. So the marketing channel cost, I haven't used that.
Do you want to read out the question, since I don't think the chat will be recorded?
Okay, yeah. So there's another option in the marketing channel editor, and it talks about cost or budget. Have you used that one before, Jen?
I haven't, because again, on the subscription model, it's a little bit less because we just sell the subscriptions for basically the same amount to everyone. So it's not like an e-commerce site where you're, people are buying multiples of items or, different items from a store.
Yeah. So what I know about the marketing channel cost is you can go in and add different items that basically explain how much you're spending to gain that traffic. So if you've got your paid search, for example, you can set up a particular time frame and then how much you're spending either like as a whole on that campaign. So say you've got a campaign that you're running and you're spending $1,000 to run it, you can put that amount in. Or you can put in like a rate, so like a cost per click. And I haven't actually reported on these before, so I'm not 100% certain on how it looks in the reporting. But I know sort of the purpose of setting it up is basically to explain how much you're spending on your marketing channel.
And then the comment was, it's not pulling data from the platforms. I don't think so. And that's why our marketing team usually yeah.
Jen, if you want to stop sharing screen for a second, I can share screen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And let me, this one.
Yeah, while you're doing that, to the best of my knowledge, no. And that's why our teams really just, do their own costing out from our ad sources, from our, from what other promotions they're running. So they kind of do their own thing.
So this is basically what the cost manager looks like. And so you can, put in a name, select whichever channel you want the attribution, the date that your campaign is running, and then you can do it as a rate. So, cost per click, and you can put in that amount per, number of, and then whatever event you want. Or you can set it as a one-time cost, and you can put in the amount and then distribute it by, again, another metric. So I haven't had to actually report on this myself before, so I don't know what it looks like in reporting, but this is what the setup of it looks like.
And the jump back into, I think, the question about the pulling data from platforms. I think your comment, sounds like it's not very widely used. I haven't seen it being used on any of jumping in. No, it's not just a moderator here, but just from my experience, it's not been something that I've seen a lot of clients utilize, because it is kind of very manual, and it kind of like expects this to be for this campaign. If you have any type of volume of campaigns or dynamic campaigns that you're trying to manage across that, I think it might get a little bit unwieldy very quickly trying to manage it via that method.
It's also, it seems kind of similar to like the trending not trending, but a thing that Adobe used to kind of have in the old reports and analytics, which was where you could kind of set like your, watching a campaign to get to like, a certain level and watching where you're going to make it by that time. But it was so manual that I don't think many people actually used it.
Yeah.
I have seen where a lot of people will pull, they'll pull a lot of campaign information into their tracking code, especially like Google Ads and stuff, so that they can break it out a little bit more manually, or break it out from there and then pull in what their budget was, and then they'll do that. But as far as putting it into that system, I've not seen too many people do it. So.
Yeah. And we have another question. So I know this is analytics focused, but I've heard managing marketing channels in CJA is quite different. Any sense of the differences? Yes, you're right. I haven't used CJA myself, but from what I understand from seeing it, there's no such thing really as like direct or internal anymore because of the way CJA works. So that's obviously a big change from how Adobe Analytics handles things. But I believe for the most part, a lot of the other rules of setting stuff up is still the same, but you no longer have that is first hit. So that thing that I talked about, be careful where you're using is first hit, don't overuse it. Well, in CJA, it doesn't even exist. So I guess you're safe.
Yeah, in CJA, it's derived field. So everything in CJA is a derived field, including marketing channels. So you can still do a lot of parsing out via rules. It's just the platform is a little bit different. So it take a minute to learn how it works, basically how the differences are, but the idea is very, very similar as far as following a list of process processing rules and everything. They just don't call it that anymore. It's a derived field. So it is very different, but it has the same kind of feel. And that same logic can be used in other places as well, outside of marketing channel.
I just dropped a link in the chat. There was a Perspectives article written by another Adobe Analytics champion, Anita Mummert. She wrote this earlier this year, and it's all about setting up marketing channels in CJA. So again, I myself don't have CJA, so I've never done it myself. But from what I've read in this article, she goes in pretty in-depth into how to set up the marketing channels in CJA. So if you do use that and you're trying to get more information, I'd recommend reading her article.
Yeah. And if you're in the process of switching from, Adobe Analytics to CJA, or you're trying to run them in parallel, for anyone out there, I imagine you're probably getting a lot of questions. Why don't the marketing channels match? Again, it's kind of due to those differences, the lack of first hit, those minor differences. So the best way to move forward is basically, explain that the tools are different. They have like different purposes, especially since CJA is kind of more focused towards stitching your offline data to your online data, which obviously also changes the logic of how you're finding people, how people are coming to the site, and how, all of that. So if anyone out there is struggling with those differences, basically, try to treat it like this is its own thing. It's its own beast. It's similar, but it's never going to match exactly.
Especially like you said, if you implemented stitching, it's gonna be different. And so you're looking at trend lines at that point. If the trend is still okay, then that's still going to change too, because you're getting a wider window of the user's journey here when you're doing stitching. So the last time I had to help with migration, I pretty much told marketing to throw all the old numbers out the window and start over. Because honestly, that's what they had to do. We just tried to make sure that they had a year of overlap, so that they had at least a year of history to work with, and then just start over. You're going to have to recast some numbers as far as goals and everything, because it's not that the old numbers were wrong. These were just more right. So that's a hard concept to try to explain to people sometimes.
And even within one platform, like even if you've got multiple report suites in Analysis Workspace or multiple in CJ, the differences between those, there might be some differences there as well, depending on how your implementation is set up. If you're using Launch or a third-party tool for implementation, they might, be capturing data slightly differently. One, depending on the speed at which the hits fire and how fast people move through pages, hits might be caught or missed. So even within the same platform, you can have different numbers as well.
Yeah. And the other thing that I was going to say is, marketing channels is not that thing that you set up once and you're done with it. We review our marketing channels all the time to watch for new variations, new types of things coming in. Even like, when people start using QR codes, it's like, okay, let's go back in and add QR codes. We have a new type of email. It's a notification email. Okay, well, let's roll that in and distinguish that as its own new channel. So it's not that the old data was wrong, but as you go back and you review it, you find, that's working, that's not working, keep reiterating. And when you make those changes, you have to notify people that, hey, there's going to be some variance in how the marketing channels are going forward. It might impact your forecasting for, your budgets, but it's better because you're staying on top of it.
Yeah. And building off of that point, again, this is another difference between analytics and CJA, is any changes that you make to your marketing channels and analytics are not retroactive. So if you've gone in and say, for example, you've been capturing, organic search one way forever, and then you decide to, somehow split it out, looking at stuff historically, it's not going to update that historical data. So if you're looking at marketing channels year over year, you might get the question, well, hey, why did traffic for this channel drop by 50% from last year? Well, it's not that the traffic has actually dropped, it's that it's been reclassified into another channel, basically.
Yeah.
Whereas in CJA, you can update all of your data historically. So you don't really run into that issue quite as much.
Gonna add, I know there's been a lot of talk about this, but the one last thing I would add too is in regards to like the whole point of it being implemented differently. I think a really good way of viewing it is almost because it is like a CJA, like another derived field. It is treated much more as part of like another dimension that you capture normally, like analytics wise. And I would think of the equivalent for Adobe Analytics is basically setting a separate EVAR to use your marketing channels, where you already have this reference that's done based on logic on the page, and then you can apply changes to how you would call those retroactively, as opposed to the marketing channel, like dimension itself in Adobe Analytics that doesn't act retroactively when you make those changes. And with anything you have where you have like out of the box configuration, or like, oh, use page search texture, use other kind of like logic like that, you might have some more trickiness in getting that one for one. Well, obviously not one for one, but even getting it closer, because some of that is just out of the box logic that's kind of utilizing stuff beyond that. Whereas if you're looking at marketing channels in CJA, it's all through derived fields. So one thing you might look at as a possibility is setting up an EVAR that kind of like figuring out how your logic works and having an EVAR set up that way to kind of prep you for that for CJA. That's another way you can look at migration for it. It's just to kind of have an easier way of validating, because it's set like via the actual like EVAR, which can have a more similar like functionality to CJA.
All right, well, we got a few more minutes. Is there any additional questions?
And while we're just waiting, if there's any other questions, I'll plug again. If people watching the recording do have questions, come ask them on the Experience League communities. Jen and I are both community advisors on there. We're both on there almost every day, if not every day. I think Jen lives on there, so she's always there. But the community is a great place to ask questions and get other perspectives as well.
There's also the champion office hours, which is a great place to have a conversation like this, generally recorded and everything. So it's a good way to have some kind of instantaneous feedback.
Good. I'm glad that you found the session helpful.
Yes.
That is why we do this.
Absolutely. Where's that little heart button? I don't even know. I clicked on something and almost blocked the chat from it. I don't want that. Oh well. Okay. Well, if there's anything else, I give it one more minute, since it's almost 2:20 where I'm at. Give it one more minute. Otherwise, I'm glad. Oh, well, good. At least sorry you missed the first half, but like I said, there'll be a recording that we'll send out to the group of people who signed up, so that you'll be able to find it. There's a YouTube channel with all of the analytics, all the analytics sessions on there. So it'll be available to see. But yeah, it was a good one. There was a lot of walkthrough that I think was really, really insightful. So definitely go check it out.
And don't worry about missing the first half. You can go back and watch it. It's like reading the last half of a mystery novel. Just because you know the butler did it doesn't mean the journey to get there is any less thrilling.
But yeah, we appreciate you guys. And if anybody has any other questions, like they said, there's plenty of ways to reach out to us, and specifically Mandy and Jen. I don't think there's been a question on Experience League that I've gone in to answer that Jen didn't have an answer on already. So
there was one time I answered a question on Experience League before Jen, and I had like a little party to celebrate.
Like you said, this one time.
We do a wellness check when we don't see a response from Jen on a question. That's generally what it is. Like, oh, Jen didn't respond. Is everything okay?
No, I actually did that once. It was about a year ago. Jen hadn't been on Experience League for I think it was like 3 days. And I messaged her, it was like, hey, everything okay?
Yeah.
No, we appreciate you, Jen. You do a lot, and it's noticed. Even people outside of the champion program, they know who you are because of the amount of work you put in. So I think it's really, really appreciated and very noticed.
It also helps to have no life, you know.
Well, I don't know. I think you have a pretty cool life, and definitely a lot of friends, even in this group right here. So I think that's fantastic. But yeah, well, I'll let everybody go. So since I don't have any more questions at the moment, feel free to reach out to any of us with questions or comments, or if there's a topic that anybody wants to know more about and wants us to do one of these deep dives about, let me or Andy specifically know, and we'll volunteer somebody to set up one of these deep dives for you guys. Yeah, absolutely.
And to add on to what Nick's saying with that too, past deep dives are available also on that YouTube channel, the same place you find a lot of just the user group recordings in general. So I know there's been one on the Adobe launch that myself and Spencer Hayden walked through. That was a really fun one. And I know Jeff and Damien, I think, did one. I forget what the topic was for that one. I think it was on Analysis Workspace. But
yeah, it was Workspace. Tips and tricks.
So that might be a good starting point too if you really want to dive into fun stuff with that.
Yep. Awesome. Well, I think we'll cut it there, and I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate everyone who made it out to watch.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Yes.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Bye.